Charlotte is coming to India. There it is. Look out for this one because you heard it here first. They're offering us a 10% discount to all the viewers of this episode.
Our mission is to make the most thought-provoking spirit. Terroir, directly translated into English, means a sense of place.
And there's so much story to it as well, right?
Then there's a heavily peated variant, a super peated variant, and then a mysterious variant, if you will.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Discover series with the Whisky Advisor. I'm Uday Balaji. So today we're heading back to Islay and we're going to be discovering all things Bruichladdich with brand ambassador Caitlin Hill. Hey Caitlin, how are you? Welcome to the series.
Thank you so much, Uday. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here. But just before we jump into it, guys, as always, please like, subscribe and hit the little bell so you'll know every time we have a new video on here. So Caitlin, what do you have in your glass today?
I have some Bruichladdich.
Oh, same here. And guys, we have some really good news. Thanks to the team at Remy Cointreau India. They're offering us a 10% discount to all the viewers of this episode. So I'm going to be putting the discount code at some point in the video. So make sure you watch the whole thing. Slanja, Caitlin, thank you for being here.
Slanja.
So guys, one of my favorite places in the whole world to visit and travel is South Africa. I cannot tell you how much I love the place and I have dreams of the Braai from time to time. Caitlin is from South Africa and I believe she has some wonderful memories of visiting India as well. So Caitlin, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in the industry so far and your travels to India?
Wow. So my journey started in the alcohol trade in 2012. I worked as a cocktail waitress at a bar in Cape Town called Orphanage Cocktail Emporium. This is where I fell in love with cocktails, where I fell in love with spirits, and also being able to tell kind of the history and the story and being able to make a piece of art, you know, because every time somebody makes a cocktail, it literally is a piece of art. So I was introduced to a lot of different things there, fell in love with it. I did that for a few years, as well as kind of running back of house marketing, bookings, event management, etc., and social media for them. And then I left and I ran a gin bar for 2 years after that, which is where I was introduced to the botanist gin, which the Bruichladdich makes as well. And subsequently, I was in a competition where I got to go on different foraging excursions and making cocktails, and ended up getting to go to the distillery. I fell in love with the Bruichladdich distillery. So when I got back, I was just like, I need to do whatever I can to continue to work with these guys. And the gentleman who had been doing my job in South Africa had just left to move back to Europe. And I asked for the job. And here we are today, a little bit, almost 4 years later. So I work throughout Africa, Middle East, and India. I've been to India twice. And I've been a lot of different places in the world. I'm very lucky to be able to go to the different distilleries quite often. Obviously not this year, but yeah, my trips to India were amazing. I'd always wanted to go to India, and you know, I think you are a big traveler, you're either going to love or hate India, and for me, love it. You know, last year I got to go to Goa. And I got to see the Taj Mahal as well. So we did a bartending competition with 22 different bartenders in India. So I had to judge that. It was just incredible.
Oh, wonderful. Traveling to India and going to Goa and Taj Mahal, two ends of the country and everything in between must have been a fabulous experience. But you're not talking about fabulous travel experiences. So I've been to Islay and all the distilleries except one of the new one. And what a fabulous place, you know, it's like, it's a kind of like, you're transported back in time, you know, right from the Islay wave to all the friendliness and the hospitality. And actually, if you saw my glass, there's a little bit of a story to this. So I went to a warehouse tasting at the distillery and had a couple of pretty heavy drams and I forgot my glass and wandered off. So it was so kind. The lady who ran the tasting gave it to the gentleman who was sitting next to me at the tasting. And he came all the way to Bomo and gave me my glass at the hotel. And that's not very surprising for people who've been to Islay, incredibly.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about that special place called Islay and the
Wow.
Bruichladdich history and the distillery?
That's a really special story, Uday, and I think it's a real testament to the type of person that comes from Islay, works at the distillery, or anywhere on the Islay. It's a small island just off the coast of Scotland, about 3,000 people that live there, and currently 9 operating distilleries. Kind of either you work in a distillery, you do a bed and breakfast, or maybe you have a restaurant or a pub. But everybody relies heavily on it. So it is the economy of Islay. One of the first things I noticed when I was there, as I mentioned before, I went to the distillery before I started working with Remy Cointreau, and I think that was really advantageous for me because I saw it in my own eyes. And when we first got there, I kind of noticed when you're driving, everybody does like a little quick wave. And it's a real distinct way of figuring out if the person who's waving back to you or waving at you is kind of like overzealous that they're definitely not from Islay. But it's just honestly, it's a really amazing community with a lot of history and whiskey, of course. And for me, it's phenomenal to be a part of that family and to be able to spread that love across the world. So does that answer your question?
Of course, of course. Can you tell us more about the history of the Bruichladdich Distillery?
Sure. So the Bruichladdich Distillery opened in 1881 by a group of brothers who really were interested in doing things in kind of a revolutionary way. And to this day, we still use the original equipment from 1881, despite the distillery, changing hands a couple of times, mothballing, and then reopening, of course, in its modern tenure under the watchful eyes of Jim McEwen, Mark Rayner, and Simon Coughlin. And then was purchased in 2012 by the Remy Cointreau Group. And, we make, I think, our idea or our mission is to make the most thought-provoking spirits. And I think if you've had any Bruichladdich or if you even had the botanist gin, it's a testament, whatever we produce, you're kind of super curious about what is it that we're doing, why are we doing it? We focus a lot on terroir, barley varietal, different cask types. And, because we're using all that original equipment from 1881, you have to have people running that equipment as well. So we're the largest private employer on the island. And that's a phenomenal testament as well to just, we are, of course, interested in our history, but we're always looking forward. So I think that kind of helps you understand the distillery a bit.
Mm-hmm. But I want to know a little more about the terroir that you spoke about. But before that, let's do something fun. It's been a little while since we did the rapid fire round on the Discover series. So I've got 10 questions for you. Just answer as quick as you can. Yeah, you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Your first whiskey.
Jack Daniels.
Your favorite bar in the whole world.
The Art of Duplicity.
Mm-hmm. Your favorite food in the whole world.
Potatoes. Anything with potatoes.
Your favorite sport.
Football.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Books or music?
Music.
Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
And just to close out, what is your favorite whiskey memory of all time?
Wow, it's tough. I have quite a few, but I would say one of my personal favorites is we do a yearly summit with all the brand ambassadors around the world. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it this year because of the pandemic. But we all get to go to the island. We come together, talk about ideas, best practices, maybe upcoming strategies, etc. But there's a lot of really amazing moments. And the first one, we coined a phrase which we call warehouse foraging. And we went to the Port Charlotte warehouse with Adam Hannett, our head distiller, and Alan Loger, our production manager. Alan Logan, yeah. And basically, they kind of went into the warehouse and had a little bit of things they wanted to show us, but they were also just like, are you interested in trying, something specific? We said, we're interested in trying whatever you're willing to open up. And I had the fortune of being able to try the first edition of Classic Laddie, Port Charlotte, and Octomore directly from the cask they were first in from the very beginning in the Port Charlotte warehouse. And that's, I think, a phenomenal experience. Just being in that warehouse alone, it's so much history,
It really doesn't get any better than that, does it? Wow. My first editions of all three. I'm going to be asking about the range in a minute, so we'll come back to that. But you had mentioned terroir. Another couple of words that I could think of: provenance and transparency. All words that Bruichladdich genuinely means. Just not thrown around. It's genuinely at the heart of everything that you do.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little more about this and why it's so important?
So the influence of terroir, I think, stems from Mark and Simon's background in wine merchant industry. And terroir, directly translated into English, means a sense of place. And when the distillery was first reopening, I think Jim took that on quite literally and figuratively, in the sense that he went around and rehired everybody who worked at the distillery prior to it being mothballed. Because we are very proud of where we come from, but also it was essential for us to be able to run the distillery properly because they knew how to use the machinery, etc. And then if you look at our whiskeys, all of them are 100% conceived, distilled, matured, and bottled on the island with 100% Scottish barley. So, it's an influence into where that barley comes from as well. We work very closely with all of our farmers. A lot of that barley is now being pushed to be grown on Islay itself as opposed to the mainland. We know our farmers by name. We know what's going on in the field. We know what the rain has been like, all those different things. And it's just, it's been something that's part of our DNA, if you will. And then when it comes to, the transparency, so we're drinking the Classic Laddie. And if you look on the back of the bottle, there's a code that you can put in on our website that will tell you exactly what cask or what cask type was used, how long evolved the youngest one is in there, etc. So you'll get all of that transparent detail, what kind of barley we use, what farm it came from, what field it comes from. Sometimes it gets down to that much detail. So it's, always thought-provoking and exploration. And with all of that information, we want to share it with you. We want you to know about it and not just keep it to ourselves. Because it's exciting, it's thrilling.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really wonderful to hear because, there's a lot that a law doesn't require to be told, whether it's SWA or whichever country. So when brands come forward and just completely transparent using whatever QR code, I recently came across this company that does NFC tagging, so to give you every little detail, and there's so much story to it as well, right? And it builds that kind of connection to the brand, which I think is absolutely fabulous. But coming back to brand, so it's not just one brand that you have. So just like everything that Bruichladdich does is a little different from the rest. Your brands are split up in quite an interesting way. Could you just tell us a little bit about your range?
Sure. So first and foremost, we produce the first of its kind, which is the entirely unpeated whiskey from Islay, which is what you and I are enjoying today, the Classic Laddie. Then there's a heavily peated variant, a super peated variant, and then a mysterious variant, if you will. So the heavily peated being Port Charlotte, which, by the way, should be available in India sometime soon.
Oh, that's exciting to hear.
I brought a bottle for you guys to see what it looks like. Keep your eyes out for this. It's one of my favorite bottles in the range because it's like the old bottles they used to produce on Islay. And then we have the super peated one being most heavily peated whiskey in the world, Oxmoor. And then Black Art, which is, other than it being unpeated, there's nothing else that we know about it, and it's ABV, and maybe it's age statements, because it's essentially the head distiller's creative outlet to produce whatever he likes once a year. He or she, but of course it's he in modern tenure right now. And when our current head distiller, Adam Hannett, took over from Jim McEwen, he was the only other person to see the recipe for Black Art 4. Adam had a look at the recipe and threw it away. So it's kind of got this whole mystery about it. And I think, especially with whiskey as a category, sometimes when we know so much about something, we have all these preconceived notions of what it's going to taste like or what the value of something is, etc. So as much as we are transparent with Classic Laddie, we also have something that's a little bit mysterious, keeps you guessing. We don't want to be somebody that's going to be predictable. So it's pretty interesting. We hold the Guinness World Record for the most amount of whiskeys produced at one distillery, which is over 400. So we are extremely experimental.
I saw that you also had the X4 that came out recently. So somebody was asking me what is the strongest, highest ABV whiskey you've heard of, and I was like, yeah, there's one that recently came out that was distilled 4 times and is 70% ABV. And we're like, wow, that probably knocks your socks off right there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I haven't had any, but I'm sure it does.
Wonderful. But guys, some of you would have got that, but that was a big surprise right there that Port Charlotte is coming to India. There it is. Look out for this one because you heard it here first. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us, Caitlin. That's really big news. I'm very excited, and hopefully we'll see a few more releases coming up soon as well. Fingers crossed for that. But Caitlin, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing so many stories about Bruichladdich and Islay and the great news about Port Charlotte. But guys, if you want to get in touch with Caitlin, I'm going to be putting her details down below in the description. And I will also be putting the details of Bruichladdich on Instagram and YouTube. It's a very active YouTube channel. But that's it from me. Caitlin, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we head out?
No, that's it from me. Thank you so much for your time and for the interest. It's my pleasure and my honor to share with you my passion. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much for being here. So guys, it was a pleasure speaking with Caitlin. It was an absolutely fantastic conversation and some big news right there. So I'm waiting for Port Charlotte. But until next week, guys, please like, subscribe, and hit the little bell so you know every time we have a new video in the series. Until next time, cheers.